Start date 1009.2020. Welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast about new Star Trek and beyond. I'm your reluctant captain, Mike Garcia. With me on the view screen is
Mariah Gossett.
And trust me, Grant Davis is here. There he is.
I'm here.
He's here.
Just in time.
Tardy, but he made it. Grant,
Had to warp in.
that was perfect timing. We're just about to introduce you.
Well, hey, I'm here.
All right.
Pew, pew, pew.
Thanks for getting that. Thanks for beaming in, Grant. And Clyde is on another away mission, this time to Little Riza. He's at Little Riza, but he'll be back next week after he gets his fill of the Jamharam, of course.
He's got to bring that statue with him.
Word. So this week we're covering the season 1 finale of Star Trek Lower Decks episode 10, No Small Parts. We're also going to touch on the more exciting Trek news that came out of New York Comic-Con today. But before we get into it, Mariah, can you tell everyone how they can support the pod?
Yes. So if you would like to support this little podcast of ours, there's a few ways you can do that. One is by subscribing to the podcast. That can be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your pods. And you can find all of the links to all of those places at StarTrekPod.co.
I would also like to add that you can help support us another way by going to patreon.com/StarTrekPod, and there you can make your pledge to us. That means that every time we post an episode, you give us $1, $2, $3, whatever's in your heart. We do recommend the $2 an episode value because with that you get exclusive access to the Slack channel where everyone can chat about all things Trek. We have a whole bunch of different forums there that you guys can discuss everything from books and movies to general discussion, crazy details and theories and spoilers. We'd love to have you guys come join. We have a great gang over there right now, and the more the merrier. We would also like to point out that if you guys do join us, you would also get access to exclusive episodes that we've recorded. We've been reviewing Badass Women of Trek. It's a little series that Mike and Mariah have been doing. We've also been going into the Kelvinverse movies currently. We did a bit of the Genesis original series movies, and now we're doing the Kelvinverse ones, and they're much better.
Hey, Grant,
yeah.
no one can hear you, so we need you to go to the mixer and turn your gain up.
No one can hear me at
Whoop,
all?
whoop. I mean,
we can barely hear you. You're very low. You need to get out that chair, go to the mixer, turn that gain up. Do it. Do it.
Otherwise, we can't have a proper hot frakes.
Yeah. All right. As Grant was saying, you can join us on patreon.com/StarTrekPod. $2 an episode, and that'll really help us out. You get a bunch of bonus podcasts that we've already recorded, and we're going to record more all about Star Trek movies, old Star Trek. That's basically where we talk about old Star Trek and stuff we don't have the time to talk about on the regular pod. So patreon.com/StarTrekPod. Also, if you're watching us live tonight on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or Facebook, please participate in the live chat. And if you have a comment or a question you want us to address tonight on the pod, just type the word pod, P-O-D, in all caps before your comment so we can see it. Hey, Grant, how you doing?
Can y'all hear me? Am I too loud now?
No, you could probably go up a smidgy more, and I can talk about Comic-Con while you do that if you like.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as I'm not too loud. I'll
No.
go.
Turn it up, baby. Okay, Mariah.
It seems like a dangerous level, but I'll do it.
Do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, Mariah, you are our Star Trek news hound here on the pod. Tell us all about the Star Trek news that came out of today's New York City Comic-Con.
Indeed. I need one of those like do breaking news sound effects.
Like this? Beep.
Sort of. Yeah.
Beep.
We'll get there. All right. So there was the main multiverse panel all about Star Trek was today. It was a jam-packed panel. It started out with our lower decks crew. We had the bridge crew as well as our lower decks crew, minus Noelle Wells, who was not available, but they put up an adorable picture of her, which kept changing throughout the panel. It was very cute. But yeah, it was great. They talked about the season finale. They talked about their characters, and then we got a surprise visit from none other than Jonathan Frakes.
Frakes.
who like the whole cast reaction to him coming into their like Zoom meeting was what I think our reaction would be if Jonathan Frakes showed up to our Zoom meeting. They were all so excited, and it just made me think that they are truly the lovable Star Trek nerds that I want and I need in my life. So I loved it, and they had a great time talking about how apparently Frakes spoiled the ending for Quaid. He didn't know he ends up on, spoiler alert, ends up on the Titan at the end of this season. So he revealed that Frakes told him that, like at a con or something. And then we moved into a disco panel, which included a surprise and adorable appearance by Sonequa Martin Green's baby, who is super cute. And we also got to see a sneak peek of about the first 5 minutes or so of the season opener.
Dude, what did you think of that? Sorry to cut into your role, but I want to get your opinion on that. I really liked it. I thought it was kind of Star Wars-y, but in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, we have like brand new tech in the way that Books is flying the ship. You know, like we have like this face coming out of the screen. It was just like you get dumped into the future very quickly. Like we're on brand new ships, brand new tech, but it still felt like Star Trek. And so that's what I was like, oh, okay. Like this is still our universe, right? But everything's a little bit different. And they're flying through the debris of some ships, and they're heading to the planet. And of course, we're getting this tension of, is Burnham gonna fall and hurt herself landing on this planet or possibly die? But yeah, I was just ready for it to continue. It was like it stops right before we get to see if she makes it or not, right before sudden impact onto this planet.
Yeah.
I do like my spouse said, he was like, oh, this is their meet cute. Like
yeah.
between Michael and Books. And so I thought that was a funny way to think about it, because I know they've said they have a very dramatic, first encounter, and obviously they both crash land on this particular planet. So we're going to get a crash course from them. We also got to meet Ian Alexander and Blue Barrio, who are our two new crew members. One plays a Trill, the other we haven't had as much confirmation on their character yet. But they shared some really cute stories about, like for Blue, this is their like acting debut. Like what an acting debut to be on this show. And then Ian Alexander had a really funny story about how, anyway, you should go watch them tell it, but it's like their audition process and how nervous they were. And then like now how excited they are. And it was just like really nice. The panel had Tilly, Mary Wiseman was there, Sonequa Martin Green was there, Doug Jones was there. We also had, Wilson Cruz. And he gave like such a good quote, because it was like watching this panel, you're like, oh, this is the universe that I want to see, both here and on television. And he said, I wrote down the quote, "What we're doing here is an actual reflection of the world as it exists. And these are the people who inhabit the world. And so why shouldn't our entertainment and our media reflect that back to us?"
Yes.
And I just thought it was like,
so Star Trek.
So Star Trek, right? Like the future, we don't have to wait for the future for everything to look like this. The future is now, and we can have shows and television that look and reflect the world around us. So that was a great panel discussion. And then the biggest news that they shared at Comic-Con was from the team at Star Trek Prodigy, which is the new animated Nickelodeon show, which is geared towards kids. And they are bringing back Captain Janeway.
Beep, 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 beep.
Is that Red from Orange is the New Black?
Yes, Kate Mulgrew.
I know who that is.
Yes.
Oh, you're so low again, Grant.
Am I still low?
I don't know what's happening.
I don't know what's happening. You sound low, but it's also peaking.
It's peaking. So maybe slider up, gain down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're gonna get it. We're gonna get it locked in by the end of the show.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. Grant is not in his usual studio tonight. Yeah.
He had to stay at work late.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grant.
Thank you, Grant.
But yeah, so Janeway is back. Kate Mulgrew is taking her rightful place at the seat again. And she is just so excited to bring a new generation into Star Trek and to teach these youngsters the Janeway, if you will. And yes, I cried a lot at the beginning of the panel because like they were talking about how all of the like women writers in the room and like the women science consultants for the show were just so excited that she agreed to be on the show. So it sounds really cool. Essentially, the show is about some kids who find like a abandoned Starfleet ship and they go on adventures. So I think it'll be a cool way to see how they handle kids IP in the Star Trek universe. So
Yeah, that's going to be a great one. And can we hear you now, Grant?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, it sounds so much better.
Much
Does
better.
that sound better? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Grant. So yeah, Star Trek Prodigy. That's going to premiere, hopefully next year. Is Captain Janeway going to be a big part of the show? Do we know that?
I think so. It's essentially like the way they phrased it was who's better to lead a bunch of misfit kids than Captain Janeway. So I think she is like the adult mentor, maybe the Miss Frizzle of the situation is kind of the vibes I was getting, which also makes me excited. So I think it's going to be, Janeway as mentor, Janeway as scientist, Janeway as leader. So it's going to be awesome.
That is super exciting to have, to see Kate Mulgrew have like a third comeback. She did a lot of stuff in the early 80s, came back with Star Trek, was gone for a while, came back with Orange is the New Black in such an exciting way. And now she's back where she belongs in Star Trek and back in the captain's chair. I do remember she was an admiral last time we saw her. So I'm not sure if we're going to get Admiral Janeway or Captain Janeway. Maybe she's like Picard and like Kirk. I only want to be a captain. Fuck this admiral shit,
Yeah, so we'll see, like where it lands as far as like the timeline of things, but yeah, I'm very excited for these new adventures with Janeway.
Fucking A. Exciting, and we'll have more news on that as the pod goes on over the weeks. All right. Let's carve this thing up like a first contact day salmon, guys. It's time to dive into episode 10 of Lower Decks, No Small Parts, a.k.a. Crisis Point 2, The Rise of the Packlids, a.k.a. Star Trek, Lower Decks, The Titan Edition. Episode 10 was written by showrunner Mike McMahon and directed by Barry J. Kelly. This is the one where everyone learns Mariner's secret. The Packlids of all species start murdering people with their death ships. And Riker and Troy show up to give the Cerritos a boost with the Titan, a.k.a. the other Enterprise. Okay. As you might know, this is Star Trek Discovery Pod. We don't do hot takes. We do hot frakes.
Hot frakes!
Ooh, that'll be fun to edit later.
Is this working now?
Yes.
Is this freaking microphone working?
You might want to back up 2 feet there, buddy. All right.
For that part.
Time for hot frakes.
Sorry, ears. Sorry, everyone's ears.
Mariah, let's hear your hot frake on this episode.
Oh my gosh, y'all, I was like on the edge of my seat for this entire episode. I mean, from the cold open and the big reveal to the entire bridge, which I thought was like a funny way to do it with the comm badge, because you're always like, how much are they listening to? Like, can you turn it off? Do you have to hit it back for them to hear you? Anyway, it just feels like a lot of personal information can get out there. But I love how they handled it through. I am loving seeing Mariner's relationship with Captain Freeman continue to develop, in this universe that we get to see as mother and daughter, and how that's going to progress into season 2. I thought it was such a fun balance of comedy, but also just felt like a general Star Trek finale. Like it was the big finale. We get a big bad, we have a battle, we have puzzles we have to solve. Rutherford gets his big, hero moment. And then, oh my gosh, Shax. Like I legitimately got a little teary when Shax pushes that ship out and says, "Get out of here, baby bear." And then he's like wrestling the people to the ground as the ship explodes. Yeah, I thought this took me on a full emotional journey and was an excellent season finale. And then my face, like, as they're like, we're getting a signal, and they're like, it's the Titan. And then you like realize that the Titan means it's going to be Riker. And like, my face was just like, if you're not watching, you should, because I made a ridiculous face. But yeah, I was just like a kid in a candy store for this episode. I loved it. I loved all the references. I thought it was the most homage to how much this writer's room and how much this crew of people who make this show love Trek. It was a total love letter to Trek.
Grant Davis, you are our new Trekker on this voyage. Did this finale mean as much to you as it did to Mariah and maybe me?
I thought it was a great button on a fantastic first season of this show. I felt a little bit more of an emotional connection with the penultimate, but I find that's often the case for me with television shows. I think it's the bigger rising action, and this episode, while it seemed like it was going, I mean, it's definitely pushing all the characters in directions, and I'm very fascinated by that. But there seemed almost a little bit of an expected mechanic to it that I had not been experiencing in a lot of the other episodes. I had a good feeling of where the twists and turns were going to be coming in. But that said, I mean, it did have stakes. We had Shax die. We had Rutherford lose his memory. We have Boimler going on to another ship and Mariner repairing her relationship with her mom. There's so much that I love about where this pushed the show into an inevitable second season, and I'm extremely excited about that. And I thought it was overall a really, really fun and funny episode.
I have to agree. I love where we left all of our characters at the end of this episode, especially Mariner and Boimler, who is going off to a new ship, and which maybe means the Titan might be part of our second season. That's pretty exciting. But just to go back, this episode had everything. This episode was everything. It was phenomenal. So packed with exciting, emotional, surprising stuff. Jam-packed with like really sweet, warm Star Trek goodness. And it just flew by with excellent pacing. The pacing there was so much stuffed into this episode that I started forgetting great things that happened 10 minutes ago because there were 10 more great things happening right before my eyes as it kept going. I was gripped and excited the entire time. I adored this season finale. Really great character moments, some deep emotional stuff. Mariner and her mother coming to terms or starting to come to terms with their differences and forming a partnership, not only in the moment, in the heat of battle where they had to and they were forced to, but at the end, continuing that partnership and figuring out how to make it work for the long term was a great cap on the arc we've had with them throughout this entire season, but also a development that I really want to see go forward in season 2. So many emotional payoffs. Shaq's death was really surprising and really noble and really sweet for him to sacrifice himself for the baby bear. Hell yes. Bring on season 2. I am a happy Trekker, Grant. I do agree. Even though I really enjoyed the pacing, and I felt like everything was slotted in really perfectly. All the elements and developments were slotted in really well. It just felt really good watching this. I do agree there was something kind of like maybe mechanical or rote about it in terms of like, okay, here's where the act break goes. You know, it was, I kind of felt some of the twists coming. Like I kind of knew when I think they mentioned the Titan towards the beginning of the episode. So I was like, okay, that's Chekhov's Titan. It's gonna come back.
Right.
Yeah. And it did. But even when it did, even when I was expecting it to happen in that moment, it still blew my socks off and I still enjoyed it. And I think Mike McMahon and his writers, maybe they knew like, okay, we kind of showed our hand by mentioning the Titan at the beginning. So it might not be a surprise for everyone. So what we're going to do is make sure that the depictions of Riker and Troy are not only true to their original depictions in the movies and in TNG, but they're also going to be really funny and really work in the the lower decks humor style.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, so that really worked too. All right, well, let's dive deeper into this episode. I really appreciated the opening where we get the reference to an old TOS episode.
Mhm.
And not only do we get a reference to a TOS episode, but the show goes even deeper, talking about Kirk and Spock, who dealt with a sentient computer in this old episode. And we see the picture of Kirk and Spock on the pad, and it's the animated series version of them. So like that's just how they look in the Lower Decks continuity. They look like the animated series versions of them. I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, I thought that was super funny. And I love that because, like, the original series episode is called Return of the Archons. I can never say it. But it's like the return to the return, because, like, in the original episode, like, the original people on that planet were Earthlings who had moved there. And so it's like this kind of coming back to these folks. And I thought it was really. I think it's been smart of them throughout the entire series to visit these different species that very rarely get a lot of screen time, right? Like we haven't seen our usual big bads. It's not the Romulans. It's not, the Cardassians. It's like one-offs. And I think I listened to a lot of Mike McMahon interviews today, so I'm not sure. I think it might have been in the pod directive where he talked about how they try to use these different alien races that only ever got one episode of a show, because then it means they have more to play with and more fun to be had. And I think it's just so smart. And I think it feeds into the larger picture that I think they set up in this finale for season 2 is like, we're going to continue to try to revisit all of these different alien planets that we've only ever seen once, because they have so many that they get to kind of play with and pick from.
Yeah, Grant, that original series reference opening probably didn't do much for you, but you could probably appreciate some of it.
I mean, I liked the TOS acronym and how Ransom was kind of discussing all of that. I think what I didn't like about the intro, and maybe this is jumping the gun a little bit, but when we have Boimler just kind of blurt out the secret, and all it boiled down to, the reason they've kept it so tightly held, was just that they didn't want the drama. Like, it wasn't anything deeper than that. And I thought for dragging that out as the 9-episode mystery, 10-episode mystery, that, I don't know, I thought it merited something a little bit deeper or substantial than they just didn't want to make waves, I guess. Because especially with how we discussed how heavy the threat came across in the simulation last week, where Freeman was like, if anyone found out, I would completely destroy their career. I would bury them. And I mean, that said, I thought it was a humorous way to do it. It was a quick pulling off of the Band-Aid. If we eliminate what my expectations were and my hopes, I guess, how it actually played off was good.
I could have let that bother me as well, but there was so much other good stuff in this episode that it didn't bother me as much. I was thinking there should be something a little deeper here, and I watched this episode early in the evening, and from morning to the afternoon, my phone was blowing up with texts of friends telling me, "Have you seen the episode yet? You have to see the episode." So my expectation was the same as you, Grant. Oh, they're doing something to pay off Mariner's past here, or pay off the idea that we have to keep Mariner's true identity as the captain's daughter, as the admiral's daughter, is secret. But no, they just didn't want the drama. However, I will say that what this episode did, and I think what the series has done as a whole so far, is really do a fun job of subverting regular dramatic expectations, or subverting like sitcom style expectations. So instead of the expectation, instead of fulfilling an expectation a lot of us might have, which was there's this big dramatic reason why no one can know Mariner is the captain's daughter. Instead, they spin that into a great, hilarious running gag about how annoying it is that everyone on the ship knows that
Right.
Mariner is the captain's daughter. And so everyone starts sucking up to her. Everybody tries to use her to the point that she wants to get the hell off the ship. And that scene with Ransom working out and wanting to promote her over Boimler and not sure what to do. And even the scene before
'Cause
then where he's like,
an apologetic suck up.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. The scene before then where he's getting hard was great.
You
And-
love him getting hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought there might have been more of a payoff, but I did see on the Ready Room that Mike McMahon said that the secrets out is going to be a big part of season 2. So I think it's something that they're sort of setting up for what those bigger consequences might look like. Because at the end, I think they sort of wrapped it up in a bow where, Mariner wanted to be the anonymous fuck up, and Captain Freeman didn't want all of Starfleet to know that her daughter is the fuck up. So it's like, I think they both had some stakes in the game, and I agree we probably could have seen more. But again, we had 25 minutes to fit essentially what would normally fit into a 44-minute Star Trek episode, and I thought that they did it as well as they could.
And the reveal itself was really funny.
Yeah.
Like the comm badge gag. I think everybody who watches Star Trek always wonders about how much can the other person hear,
Mhm.
and how long can they hear if I hit the comm badge, or if somebody tries to communicate
Your
with
privacy
me.
is
Yeah, exactly. What are the
Mhm.
privacy issues there?
Which-
That was
which is
really good.
completely applicable to Zoom calls now, and
Right.
you're fucking up and oh, am I on mute or not? Oh no. But
And I like that they ripped the Band-Aid off real quick. This whole episode didn't have the sword of Damocles hanging over the episode. Like, is the ball going to drop? They dropped it right in the beginning, and they dealt with it, and they did it in a funny way. And they did it. They actually, the show actually helped Boimler grow into a nice, gave him a little bit of an arc here, because at the beginning, Mariner is giving out coloring books to the kids on the planet, breaking protocol for the better of the species that they're supposed to help. And Boimler comes up to her and doesn't start quoting the rules. He actually starts helping her and participating. It's a new era for our little Boim, which I thought was great. And he's doing that because he feels closer to her, and he knows her secret. He feels closer to her. So the reveal of the secret kind of grew that relationship a little bit, and it was really funny.
Yeah. And then I feel like we got like a cold comedy open, and then we get sort of like a cold dramatic open when we see this other ship that's essentially torn apart as they go into warp drive. And I thought the animation of it was so impactful. I thought they did a really great job of being like, oh yes, this shiny, pretty ship has now just been totally destroyed. But they still did it with their lower decks way, right? Don't wear your shoes on the nice new carpet, and the film is still over the captain's chair, So I thought it was, anyway, I was just oh, it's we got these two smaller pieces, and it's the starts of these A and B plots that are gonna collide at some point. And collide they sure did.
Yeah, the image of that claw ripping the nacelles off the ship and blowing it up was actually shocking, and just a really spectacular image to drop right at the beginning of this episode. The battle animation throughout this entire episode was just amazing.
Agreed.
It was so good.
Yeah, once again, it's stakes and consequences that they're showing in this show, with an entire ship getting killed, and we didn't have an emotional attachment to this particular ship or these people. We didn't know them, but it is a little heavier than a lot of the tone of this show thus far. And then for them to kind of add on to that, I think I'm trying to think of any other real deaths. I remember Badgie in the other episode was just like slicing people up, but there was, I guess, the guy who ascended, kind of maybe in a way died. But this is like the other first time where you have a whole ship of people die right in the beginning, which felt very Star Trek 2009, and then you have Shaxx and his death, and there's no going back from those, and that means, okay, this is stepping up a little bit in its maturity, and it's evolving beyond just these kind of yuck observations about how Star Trek world works, I guess.
Yeah, that's so true. This, for the past maybe 2 or 3 episodes, the show really showed us that it wants to ascend from just being a parody to actually part of the Star Trek canon. And this is the first time that I felt the show really fit nicely into the canon, even as it's making jokes about canon itself. And that's such a tricky thing to pull off. But I think they did it here.
Yeah, and then our sort of B plot is with this android like vacuum thing named Peanut Hamper, which I thought was very funny. That's mathematically the most perfect name. And I thought it was such a interesting twist into the trope, right? Of that Star Trek. In Star Trek, we all follow the code of Spock, which is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, right? And then she's just like, nope, I'm out of here.
I love subverting that trope. Yeah, that's what this show did over and over. It was just subverting those Star Trek tropes. And yeah, for those out there trying to place Peanut Hamper, she was an exocomp, the worker robots that gain sentience in the Quality of Life episode from TNG, where Data has to fight for his right to be an individual. I thought she looked familiar. I had to look it up.
And then I also love that they sort of flip on its head that moment in the medical bay when Peanut is doing the procedure, and it could have been that that would be very funny, CJ. I thought Tendi could easily be very like upset that she's no longer the star pupil, but instead is just so excited because she's Tendi.
Cheering her on. We should all be more like Tendi.
Yes.
Your friend, the person you're helping out, exceeds your expectations and maybe is better than you at something. Good for them.
Yeah.
I like everybody kind of, this is a finale, but I thought we gracefully got to some really organic feeling character ascensions. Like Tendi is growing here. In the pilot episode, she was the new recruit, and Boimler was showing her around, and now she gets to be the liaison to the new officer, and she does such a great job of it. Even when this new officer just ends up being a really selfish prick who maybe dies in space.
Going off of your whole like subverting expectations thing, and I agree, that's a great point that the show does over and over. How the robot refuses to accept the call of duty. How is that dismissive of me to just say the robot? Apologies.
I mean, you could call her Peanut or exocomp.
Yeah. As far as PH doing that, great, genius. Similarly, when we see that there's the moment where, what's his name? Rutherford has his memory wiped. When she realizes this, her traditional response would be, "Oh no, the tragedy." Instead, she just looks on the bright side and just like, "Oh sweet, we get to become friends all over again. Oh, it's gonna be awesome." And as how the show continually does that. You see Rutherford, oh, I'm going to go give my boss a piece of my mind. and it's to compliment him. It's to build him up. And the show does such a great job of constantly changing what you expect of these characters.
And it's so Star Trek because it is the Star Trek future where it's a completely new society. They don't act the way we act.
They're all positive. I don't
Yeah,
understand it. I
exactly.
fucking hate it.
Yeah. Such a contrast to what is happening in
Yeah.
2020.
I thought there was some really smart, and I think I saw some people on Twitter talking about how, or maybe in the Slack, there's some nice parallels to the pilot episode in this episode. Like what you just said, Mike, about how Tendi is now the person giving Peanut the tour and is the mentor there. We also finally get to see where all of Mariner's contraband is all over the ship.
The Batleth comes back from the first episode.
Yes, totally comes back. And then we get Tendi and Rutherford also meeting again for kind of the first time at the very end. And we get to see, sort of Boimler and Mariner sort of step back to step one. Like their friendship is still there, but because Boimler is now on the Titan and has taken, the job promotion, it means they've sort of had to reset what their friendship is going to be like. So it's going to be about building what this long distance friendship looks like, because according to the Comic-Con panel and the show with Will Wheaton that comes on later after things. Anyway, I don't remember what it's called now.
The Star Trek After Thing show.
The Star Trek After Thing show. They talked about like that is not something they're going to reverse for at least a while. So we're going to get to see more of the Titan, which also means we get more Riker, which is fun. But it also means we get to see what the lower decks on the Titan looks like, which I also think is exciting. But yeah, I thought the parallels to the pilot were very smart.
And testament they really were. Testament to the quality of this show that me being a champion of them progressing the plot line for the whole season, only for me to kind of bellyache about this. But I liked the relationship. I liked the safety and the dynamic of Boimler and Mariner, and breaking up the band like that was a little bit frustrating to me, especially with how they underlined it with Boimler like confessing, hey, you know what? I always go for these promotions and these jobs. I try to get them, but they never happen. The only reason I'm upset is because now you're doing it and I know you can get it and I don't want to lose a friend. And I was like, that seals the deal of the stakes of this, and that he appreciates, really values getting to be around her in that relationship. And then he just kind of takes a job and then ignores her and ghosts her. I'm like, that's
like he's the cool kid.
Yeah.
It's messed up though.
It is messed up.
It
right
feels
after
like a betrayal to me.
Yeah, it felt like a betrayal, especially he just bounces right after he admits that she's his mentor. So
right.
It was a weird arc for Boimler. Like Boimler seems closer than ever to Mariner at the beginning of the episode. They seem to grow closer throughout the episode. And Boimler actually earns this promotion. We see Ransom reading all of his credentials, which are great. And he does a great job during the battle as well. He actually earns it. And he gets promoted. And he abandons his friends, not just Mariner, all of his friends in the process, putting his career over things like friends that could become family. So we did see a progression for Boimler, but he still has a lot to learn about relationships. And he's still kind of a lame piece of shit.
I mean, it's at least consistent, right? Like he's consistent to character. He's always been opportunistic, and he's going to sell out people to climb the ladder and be the goody-goody, right? That's what he did on the evil medical ship when he ratted everyone else out to the leader when they were going to do the revolution.
On the trip to the farm.
Yeah. He will sell out those around him for what he thinks is good and overall best for him, which is a little bit spineless in a way. And I understand that there are reasons to dislike the guy, even though I too identify a lot with him a lot of the time. So I don't know. I get it, but at the same time, I was just kind of like, now the dynamic's different, and I don't know what it's gonna be next season.
But I mean, I'm hoping it means we get more like Mariner Tendi adventures, which I think will be fun.
Right.
So I have a feeling, maybe we'll get these smaller vignettes of what's happening. My prediction would be smaller vignettes of what's happening on the Titan with Boimler, and then something is going to happen that's going to like bring the team back together, right?
Overall, this is great. This is what a show should do. Because this is what we had one season, we had 10 episodes. They made me care about all these characters to this point where I find it too precious and I don't want them to mess with the formula. And then they're like, you know what, we're going to mess with the formula and let's see if you can still roll with us because we're going to be experimental. And I think that's what it should do. I don't want to be lulled just into the safety of what this show is. This is season 3 of The Office when Jim bounces to another office and they have to split the dynamic of like what's the running storyline over here, what's going on over here, and then will we eventually merge those? I mean, I would imagine inevitably they're going to merge them just for the sake of ease of storytelling, but I don't know. I don't know what they're doing here, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I appreciate the shakeup. I appreciate the sense of experimentation that we got here at the end that might continue in season 2, and the sense of subverting expectations like we've been talking about. And talking about subverting expectations, the villains were the Packlids. First appeared in TNG. The Packlids are the dim-witted, slow-moving, smelling their own farts as their favorite pastime dummies of the galaxy.
I have no idea who
Like,
these people are.
Oh, they're so dumb. And they are a joke, and they've always, for 30 years, they've been a joke, and Lower Decks turns them into a genuinely threatening and dangerous enemy without really changing who they are.
Oh my God. Every time they were like, Enterprise, and they're like, we're not the Enterprise. Another Enterprise.
So dumb.
Someone mentioned it up top here, and I agree with them that the Packlets, I don't know what they're called. They totally remind me of the Reavers from Serenity, from Firefly, the spacefaring pirate junkers who were like evil zombie characters, but like they're just kind of dumb and they collect people's space trash and they are pirates.
Yeah, they weren't always like that. They were always kind of junkers, but they were never nearly as threatening as the Firefly Reavers were. But now they are, apparently.
Apparently.
So what do you guys make of that kind of? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
What do you guys kind of make of this idea that the commentary they're putting on the Trek universe of Starfleet's continual failure to keep tabs on these different civilizations and see how they progress and change, and maybe for the worse?
I think it really just speaks to the depth that the writers want to put into the show. Like we have Mike McMahon and Mariah, like you mentioned earlier. The people behind this show love and adore Star Trek and are tasked with creating a fun animated cartoon version of it, but they also have great story ideas. They've also been watching the show for 30, 40 years and are invested in the world and the universe of Star Trek. And so they want to build upon it. And they not only want to build upon it by dropping in references every 10 minutes, they want to build upon it by challenging certain themes and ideas that Star Trek has always held true. Is the Federation perfect? Of course not. Here's what's wrong with it. And and they're doing it with character, right? We had the idea that Starfleet might not be perfect and might need to change and grow, and it can be a revolving thing, came through the conversation with Mariner and her mother at the end when they're cementing their new partnership and their different styles and how they can work together to better the Federation. Because, the Federation's not perfect, and there are things that the Federation drops the ball on all the time. Mariner knows it, but she always does something about it, because you kind of have to go. You can't go by the book if you're going to do something about it. But yeah, it's exciting.
I agree with you, Mac. I think it's really exciting. I also think it's a smart way to sort of do the commentary about how this show used to be the alien of the week, right? Like we were meeting brand new planets, brand new species, like every single week on the original series. A lot of times in Next Generation, they even make the joke like, oh, it felt like those guys were hitting up a new alien species every single week when they're in the elevator between Ransom and the captain. And so when we finally get to the end of the episode, it's them having the realization of like, oh, we can't just interact with all of these folks once. Like we need to, it's community building, right? Like if you're actually going to build community, you have to revisit them and bring them into the fold, or else it is just that like weird colonizer sort of idealization of Star Trek, where you're just conquering these places. You're a part of the Federation now. We'll come back when things go wrong, right? But instead, I think the vision that Mariner and Freeman have for the Federation is more, how can we stop all of this stuff from happening in the first place?
Yeah. So do you guys overall like, I mean, tell me what you guys experience when Titan shows up and Riker and Troy are there, because I know you guys were getting some references I was not.
I mean, oh my God.
Is he big into jazz, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, he plays a trombone, my friend.
Oh no.
The warp 5, 6, 7, 8 made me laugh to no end. I also loved they got to comment on like the weird, not weird because they're in a relationship, but weird to see on a show, the like Riker Troy sexual tension on the bridge, where he's like, they have a little Risa there, and she's like, oh, should we bring the little statue that says we're gonna bang it out? And he's like, oh no, we're bringing the regular size statue. And then Boimler's just like, we need to go, and you need to stop talking about hooking up.
See, I didn't know what that meant at all.
Yeah,
I was like,
that
I
was
guess
really
it's
funny.
like
And
sexual
then,
innuendo, but I don't really know.
and then the Enterprise like monologue where he's like, sorry, it was just on watching the finale of Enterprise, and he starts saying the theme song.
The long road.
That was so great because, Grant, you don't know this, but the finale, the series finale of Enterprise is the worst series finale of Star Trek of all time. Even Enterprise fans say this because the entire finale is Riker watching a holodeck simulation of what's happening on the TV show Enterprise. It all
took place in a snow globe.
Exactly.
Sort of,
that's all it is. And so, in this episode, for them to reference the worst Star Trek finale in one of the best Star Trek season finales was just icing on the cake. And the fact that he was singing the song, I don't even have to sing it here because Riker already referenced the song.
You
already did it. But I was going to say, Riker has now been on 3 finales because he was on Enterprise. He was on Picard, and then he was on Lower Decks, and his Picard to Lower Decks are both him swooping in to sort of save the day.
Is that going to be a new
swagger, that man?
A new finale tradition? Frakes drops in to save the day. I also think Frakes is the guy who's been on the most Star Trek series.
Yes, he's been on the most series.
He was on Enterprise, TNG. He was on DS9. He was on Voyager. He's on this. That's 5. And Picard, 6.
And
so
Picard. And he, what was I going to say? Oh, but this is the first time we actually get to see a physical rendering of the Titan. Because we've never on screen. Which is very cool.
I swear, the comments have given me homework on like 6 episodes they want me to watch here. It's not happening.
It's because they care.
Unless Mike and Mariah trick me. I'm not watching any of that old stuff. It is a little sad to me that Clyde isn't here because that dude loves Titan and Riker, and he like read the whole Titan like book series. Didn't
He was texting me today. He's like, I wish I could be there. This was my episode. But he'll definitely be back for Discovery, and we'll ask him about what he thought about the Titan showing up here.
In season 2, I'm sure, when we're really going to get into it.
I do have a question. Like, I was confused as to why the Titan had the TNG movie uniforms. Like, everybody in the Titan had the TNG movie uniforms. Because, I don't know.
I didn't even notice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the grays. I don't know.
I like them, but yeah.
That
didn't make sense.
Is that not supposed to carry over? Like, he graduated from TNG to that other ship. Is it like an idea of like, have we ever seen him on the Titan before in like a different type of uniform?
Mm-mm.
No, I mean the uniform he was wearing was what they were wearing on the Enterprise before he moved to the Titan. Usually the uniforms change by era, not by ship.
Maybe it's just by captain's decree. We're wearing the old retro shit, guys.
Exactly.
This is what I was comfortable with. I like the polyester feel on my skin. That's all I want to stick to.
It might be what it is. Yeah.
In the future, polyester is very comfortable. And
very
not
comfy
at all.
I wanted to say I loved the music cues when the Titan showed up as well, playing the TNG theme song in the background. It was very exciting.
I like that. I'm just going to run through a few things that were great. It was cool that Captain Freeman finally showed that she's a really competent captain when she realizes that the Packlids will destroy the ship with their clamps. Because she's like, that must have been what happened to the other ship. So she orders them not to go to warp, even though anyone else will go to warp.
Right.
I like that a lot.
And then she shows the deference to Mariner to be like, you are an incredible rapid fire like problem solver under stress and outside the box thinker. What do you got for me?
And Badgie returned, and he's still as homicidal as ever, and he tries to fucking kill Rutherford again.
The relationship there is so funny, and I really hope it's not the last we see of Badgie.
I don't think it will be.
Especially as Rutherford now will be the father of a kid he doesn't even remember creating.
Right.
I'm wondering,
adding to the conflict.
What if he makes a second Badgie because he doesn't remember making OG Badgie, and he's like making these training programs again, and then we get double Badgie episode.
Good Badgie versus and evil Badgie. It's like it's a Mirrorverse Badgie, right?
Yes.
I thought before he dies, Shax's picking up and carrying Rutherford was just wonderful. Rutherford's like, I can run too. And just Shax's going out exactly how he wanted to on the greatest day of his life was just somewhat deep and great. Like Shax's sacrifice and heroism was just really, really lovely in this episode. And they did it well.
That entire sequence when he first picks up Rutherford, carries him to the ship, and blasts off, cutting the hole through the whatever our ship's called, to go out to Cerritos. Like the whole way through, he was a man driven with purpose and fully in charge of his destiny, even as he rushed toward the inevitability of his death. And it was a very heroic death, which just sealed what a great, albeit brief, glimpse of that character it was.
And in Star Trek fashion, a tactical officer dies in the first season, just like Tasha Yar from TNG. I like that they let him die. It reminds us that this show just does exist in the larger Star Trek universe, and that people do die in Star Trek and in space, where these strange, dangerous situations happen all the time.
Yeah, I'm hoping I think what would be fun, because Fred Tatasciore, who voices Shax, is like a legend voice actor. And so I'm hoping that whoever the new security officer is also still voiced by Fred, because I think that would be like a fun way to play with the idea. Like, yes, we killed off this character, but the actor is still here because this is an animated show.
Right. I'm Shax's brother.
Yeah, exactly.
I look exactly like him. Let's just move on as if nothing happened.
That would be amazing.
I'm going to jump into some of these comments. And if you have a comment on the live stream, on the live chat, just type in POD, capital POD before your comment. Wakanda customer service, talking about the uniforms in this episode. Doesn't the Discovery have different
Mhm.
uniforms from other ships like the Enterprise? Could it just be the kind of class of work they do changes their uniform? Yeah, that's a good explanation for it. They do have the different uniforms on Disco and on the Enterprise. The Enterprise has like the more classic, colorful uniforms, where Disco has the blue. Um, and yeah, the Titan and the Cerritos are different classes of ships. So that would make sense.
If this is not explicitly outlined and mapped out and completely explained by some hardcore Trekkie, I'm going to be completely shocked here. That's y'all's jam, isn't it? Like,
Grant, what are you doing
really
the rest
going-
of the night? You and I need to do this.
It ain't me. It ain't me, fam. That's someone else. Here's another one. This comes from Wakanda Customer Service, who says, Pod, I don't think I would be too upset with a friend taking a promotion and moving on to another city. Mariner's always bumping into old friends she was close to. Why is Boimler any different? And it's true, and it may
It's
be
true.
fine. It may be that they're constantly Zoom chatting like we are in our current dystopian hellish nightmare of a reality. But I don't know. I think that them being bunkmates and the closeness of that relationship is just a testament to how well the show did at developing that relationship and making me care about it, so that when he moves on, it has the emotional weight that they are intending. The success. I'm mad at you. Lower Decks. I wish you
Yeah.
didn't split up the band. And I'm also at the same time captivated, and you got me for another season.
I do think it feels different in this particular case because we heard Boimler say to Mariner, I don't want you to get the promotion because I want us to stay together because we're best friends. And so then it's like when you double reverse it back, it does feel a little backstabby, but like a light backstabbing, if you will.
Yeah. Going back to uniforms, my favorite subject. Home Chicky says, hey, TNG and DS9 were on at the same time, but they had different uniforms. That's true.
Yeah.
But TNG had the starship uniforms, just like every other starship in that era, and DS9 had the space station uniforms. So that made more sense. Also, when TNG spun off into the movies, they got the grays. And then when DS9 premiered that season, when the first movie came out with the TNG cast with the gray uniforms, DS9 also had the grays. So the uniforms synced up then. Anyway, uniform inconsistency, god damn it.
It's whatever the costume designer feels is probably going to look based on the lighting that they have, the sets that they have, the cameras that they have, like all of
It's animated. There's no
choices.
lighting. CJ Higgins has a good theory. They're wearing the grays and the blacks because they are more slimming.
Keeping it toy.
I should switch to those.
I like this comment from Phil about Boimler isn't different, and perhaps this is how Mariner always reacts. It's true. We haven't actually seen, how this particular situation happens to her. We've only seen the after effects, which are always the like, oh, hey, friend, I've made along the way. And perhaps she feels like that contact doesn't always happen. And because of this closeness to Boimler, it feels a little bit different, but who knows? We will see.
Yeah.
How it progresses.
Well, and Choopy says Grant needs to see Return of the Archons.
I know. There's been a
TOS episode.
Several people giving recommendations for stuff I need to watch. I see these out of the corner of my eye while we're doing this show, and I go, no more homework for me.
More uniform fun. Phil R said Voyager never adopted the Greys. That's true.
Because they were stuck.
Because they were stranded. Yeah, they were stranded out in the Delta Quadrant and didn't have any communication. But they kind of did on the show Adopt a Grace, because when they established a communication link to the Alpha Quadrant, everybody in the Alpha Quadrant they were talking to was wearing the Greys, but Voyager wasn't.
Do y'all have a favorite uniform?
The Greys.
The Grays? Is that... I have to look what the Grays this
Oh,
outfit is.
just the DS9 season 7 uniform, or the first contact uniform, the one that Riker was wearing in this episode.
I think mine might be between Discovery and perhaps these lower deck uniforms, because I think they look pretty crisp. You know, hard to say what they'd look like on a non-animated form, but I think they look pretty cool. What did you think of Mariner's one-time bad date saying Wolf 359 was an inside job?
That was so great. I
What does
think
that
maybe
mean?
that was that might have been a pretty sly kind of mean reference to Roberto Orsi, who was a co-writer of the J.J. Abrams Trek movies, because he is a truther. He's a 9/11 truther. And he was supposed to write and direct Star Trek 3, but he got a little too wacky, so they kind of kicked him out of the franchise.
And that's why Peg took over.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really funny because like when you so for Grant, Wolf 359 is when Picard goes full Borg and kills a ton of people. So it's like technically you could say it was an inside job, but not.
Got it. Okay.
And he's also like a Holocaust denier, like denying the Dominion War and stuff. That was so good.
My favorite costumes or outfits, uniforms, would be. I really like the ones that are being worn in the Star Trek Kelvinverse movie series, where they're wearing like the black turtlenecks with like the yellow or blue or red kind of long john over top. It just looks really comfortable to me. The material and like weight of it. And I'm like, I'd wear that. That feels, nice.
Here's a comment that references Mariah from Phil. Per Mariah's comment about designer dictating uniforms, that's the whole reason Command and SecTac switch colors in TNG. Designer determined that Picard and Riker look better in red. That's right, because Command was originally yellow.
Huh.
Haha, artistic licenses.
Well, this has been a fun stream talking about this episode. Do you guys want to talk? Do you have anything else to say about this episode or about Star Trek costumes? Because I could talk about that all night.
I had a couple more references I thought were funny. There is the moment when Riker tells Mariner, "Why don't you buy me a drink?" And Mariner yells, "But we don't use money anymore."
Yeah. He's like, "Come on, remember I saved your ass that time in space with the aliens?"
And then I think it's funny that we finally get a reference back in the show because they're heading to Telgana 4, which is where Boimler and Mariner went on that adventure to try to bring the Klingon to the negotiating table. And they go through all the little different, subsets of different species who are all living on that planet, which is where we get the Risa sort of situation. And then I just wrote down jazz. So I think that was it.
Jazz.
And then I saw a lot of people talking about the Spock helmet today in our Slack. That was a fun little reference as far as the contraband. And then, we got some blood wine. And apparently there's a tribble, which Mariner says is for personal use. I don't know what she's using that tribble for, but...
Oh, and...
How does it work?
I don't know.
Personal use tribble. The quick scene with Deanna Troi and Ransom was perfect.
Oh, yeah. Would they also get that? Because I can work with that.
So good.
I'm thinking tribbles are loofahs in space.
Have you never seen The Trouble with Tribbles?
No.
Oh, that might be a TOS we need to watch for the Patreon because...
I get it. It's gremlins, right? They get wet and they multiply.
I mean, sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. They're fuzzy and cute, though.
Well, gremlins too, then. Where we get all the cute ones.
Yes.
We are Lower Decks is over for this season, but Discovery is just starting next week. We will be back every Thursday to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 3. We're covering every single episode. We are excited for that. Home Chicky says tribbles vibrate.
Oh, no.
Home Chicky says tribbles vibrate.
No.
Personal use.
Oh, no.
Beep, 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 beep. All right. Thank you
been
so
a
much
great
for
season.
joining the pod this week. Remember, You can find us live on YouTube every Thursday, Talking Trek, of course, covering Discovery every single week, starting next week with the season 3 premiere. Mariah, time for you to talk.
Yes. So you should make sure you are subscribed so you never miss an episode, especially as we get into the next season of Discovery. You're going to want all of the hot freaks. You're going to want all of Mariah's crazy conspiracy theory corners about where we're going for this season. It's going to be a great time. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcast as well. Please give us those 5 stars if you will. All of this information can be found at StarTrekPod.co.
And I tried to tell you guys this at the top of the episode, but I know I was having some audio problems. Apologies to everyone there. But I want your money. We want your money. Go to patreon.com/StarTrekPod, and there you can make a per episode pledge to us. Give us $1 an episode, $2 an episode. Right now is a great time for you guys to jump on the bandwagon because, as you know, we're jumping into season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Tell your friends to come join us and join the Slack channel at $2 an episode over at patreon.com/StarTrekPod. We try to make it worth it. We got our Badass Women of Trek. We got our Best of 7 of 9. We got our exploration of the Genesis storyline of TOS movies. We got the Calvinverse movies. We got more coming for you guys. Please join us. Once again, that is patreon.com/StarTrekPod. Make your pledge today.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek Pod. And thank you, Karen, who runs our Twitter. Thank you, James, who runs our Insta. Thank you so much for joining us again on the pod. Mariah, where can we find you online?
I'm at Mariah Gossett on all social media platforms. It's Mariah with a Y and a Gossett with 2 S's and 2 T's.
Grant Davis.
At Baron Von Grant. Boom. Right there.
Find me at Mike M. Garcia on Twitter. See you next week. Live long and prosper.
Bye.